G'day, welcome back to Commsverse. Well, we've got another session here for Skype to Teams and Mythbusting, being presented by Tom Arbuthnot and Aaron Steele. Tom.
Awesome, thanks, James. Yeah, so hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Another useful session, hopefully. This one is focusing on moving from Skype for Business to Teams, and specifically mythbusting. So some of the things we've seen in the field that have been said as can't do this, you can't do that, and what the answers are, what the recommendations are, and just some general thoughts from the field. So I'm Tom Arbuthnot, I'm Principal Solutions Architect at Modality Systems, pretty much do team stuff all day, every day, and the blog's there if you're interested. And Aaron, I'll hand over to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tom. So Aaron Steele, I'm a program manager inside of the Teams product group here to have this discussion with Tom. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, so Aaron and I spend a lot of time working on this all day, every day, and hopefully we can give you some good insight. Before we jump in, just want to say a huge thank you to the sponsors. These sessions don't happen, these events don't happen without sponsors putting their hand in their pocket. If you can, as attendees, take a bit of time to either meet them in the virtual areas, ping them in Teams, say hello, even vendors you already use, just name checking them and saying hello. That makes sure that they get some value out of the conference as well, and we get to keep doing this stuff and spreading the information. So straight in, we got 10 myths, and we're going to do them alternately between me and Aaron. Number one is Teams does so much, it's too complicated for my users. This is a fun one. It is fair to say Teams does a lot. It's UC, so it's meetings and telephony and VoIP calling, and it's collaboration. It's group workspaces, it's apps, it's potentially power apps, it's channels. There's a lot going on there, but you don't need to do it all at once. Like, it doesn't have to be big bang. And you see a lot of people getting excited about Teams. It can do so much. They want to go in and say, look, change every business process to Teams. Everything should be Teams, like everything should be in a channel. That's quite intimidating. So what our recommendation is, or certainly what my recommendation is start driving targeted adoption in your organization. Like often we get excited about collaboration, but maybe you've got a really good cost or performance reasons to drive meetings. We saw with the worldwide COVID stuff, meetings was actually a key workload. Like, suddenly everybody needs to be online for meetings. We need to get that done, and collaboration often followed because now we all need to work together in a more coherent way. But it might have been, I just need to get meetings out there first. Also, I would look at islands mode, which gives you all the functionality to your users, but they can pick which workloads they choose. So don't, or I would recommend not making a group-wide, company-wide, org-wide decision of none of my users are ready for meetings yet, I'm just going to turn on collab. Like, if you put islands mode in, they get the private chat, they get the meetings, they get the collab. You can work with the business, with the organization to see what they choose and support them. If you want to take a kind of more hard line, you can light up individual workloads and kind of measured in a measured way. But whatever you do, the Microsoft Teams, to get the most out of it, it will need adoption and change management. It will need training. You're presenting this massively powerful set of abilities to users. They will absolutely gravitate to some of them and not others. If you want them to make the most of it, think about spending some time and money on adoption change management. It doesn't have to be like a massive, crazy, multi-person, multi-team change management. It can be as simple as some good comms and some support from IT, and you'll get good benefit there.
And you can, I would just add, you can do that as you go through these things, right? So again, you're choosing islands mode, or you're choosing collab, you're choosing that workload. Bring along your change management with that. Start small, grow it. Do your change management for the collab or for the meetings. Make sure your rooms are ready. Make sure you've got all these things so that when your users start using those additional features, they're prepped, and it just can become a cycle of growth in the product.
100%. So, next myth.
So for this one, we're talking about, I've got regulations that keep me on premises. When you're discussing this and you're sort of making this I guess, statement, I can't move. I've got to be on premises. What does that really mean for your end users? Does that mean that everybody has to keep everything on premises? Or is that really a case of you've got some people who either you want to keep their data on premises because it means it's easier for you to meet said regulation, or it could mean that you actually have a compliance reason, or you've got something else going on that is keeping you on premises. But I would encourage you, when you're talking about I've got a regulation, to not just make that blanket statement. We're seeing financial services across the world, which are some of the most highly regulated in the world, and governments being able to take on this. So the challenge to you being a blanket statement of I've got a regulation, really dig in to, is that a regulation that's true, or is that a regulation that is really just a now? Meaning, we don't understand what it means to do compliance recording in Teams today. Therefore, my compliance recording solution is on premises, and therefore I'm going to keep my users who need to be compliance recorded on premises. The other thing about this is, are you able to give your users part of Teams, i.e. to what Tom was just talking about? Can you grow and give them the collaboration features? If their voice regulation is about, or if the regulation is really about voice, can you break the voice part off, keep their voice on premises or in something else, and still give them some of those advantages of meetings or collaboration? As well, when you're looking at this, make sure you understand what the Teams roadmap is bringing to you. Teams is an evolving product. It has just released, as an example, compliance recording solutions from a couple of partners that meet the large amount of voice regulations that are out there. And last, when you're talking about this, think about it. When you say somebody has to stay on premises, what you're really meaning is their data needs to stay on premises, right? So is it the fact that their data, that person's compliance data, compliance regulation, it's not that they can't deal with stuff that's in the cloud, right? It's that we don't want their data to reside in the cloud because we need the control of it. Very few of the regulations, if any, are out there saying you can't use a cloud service. They're saying I want my data where I can actually interact with it and keep it. So the case is, can you meet that requirement by keeping their on-premises mailbox until there's such a time where you can meet that requirement with a full cloud user to get all those advantages of the pace of the cloud?
Yeah, great points. And I think with that regulation question, I always ask specifically what regulation, because more and more we're seeing, like, we've got financial, we've got pharmaceutical, we've got government in the cloud. So I'm finding it's getting harder and harder push to find a regulation that overtly has a reason. There's often steps you need to take. There's go local, things like that. So yeah, good conversation there. Cool, on to the next myth. So I've got feature needs for Skype for Business that Microsoft Teams can't meet. So we've had the fun, and this is a technical audience mostly, so we've had the fun of feature parity between Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. There's always going to be some little edge cases, that things that the old product does that the new product that's replacing it doesn't. That's just the reality of IT in general. So the first thing I would say is document and define these features. So what are they? How do they work? Do all your users need this feature or features, or is it a subset of users? And is there a way to work alternately? Like, they really need feature X. Well, there's another way to approach that challenge. There's a new way to work. You've got all the upsides of Teams over here. Like, you can do this, you can do that. You get all the modern codes, you get meetings in the cloud, you get collab. But they really like the way this feature works in Skype for Business. What's the opportunity cost here of holding back because of feature X? What's the real impact? Like maybe they're making the business millions and millions of dollars, and they do have a use case for staying on Skype for Business, Well, that doesn't mean that you have to hold the entire business back. Maybe the entire business can work on Microsoft Teams and you can have a subset of people still on Skype for Business. Is that feature on the roadmap? Is it coming? Do Microsoft intend to replicate or replace that feature? If they don't, or it doesn't appear to be on the roadmap, loop back to, is there an alternate way of working here? Like, you can't stay on Skype Business indefinitely. You've certainly got up till 2025, but there'll probably be extensions beyond there. But in terms of the innovation you're missing out on for those years, is that the right choice for your organization? Are there any third-party add-ons or additions that can fix it? The API story is getting stronger and stronger. There might be third parties that can help fix that issue. And the last one is, like, don't hold back your entire org just for a subset of people. Like if you look at the reality of 2020 IT, having 100% uniformity over what you use across particularly big organizations is not the reality. You're going to have a mix. It's an evolution. Things are constantly changing. You can't hold back the entire org because a small percentage need a particularly niche feature. You might have to deal with having multi-platform in play. Aaron, anything to add to that one?
Aside from really, so no, not much. It's really, you nailed it. It's why. This really becomes a why. What is that key niche feature that is keeping them in Skype for Business when there's all this change, innovation, and capability to extend out what Teams can do? Right? It's rare that I still see that one thing that's keeping my entire org. A lot of it is, I'm not ready to make the change. I, the IT org, am not ready to reconfigure all of my voice trunks to support Teams while still coexisting with Skype. It's not that I can state that a user's coming to me and saying, I want to stay on Skype.
100%. Right, so on to our next myth.
So the cloud moves too fast. This is really one that's coming a lot from the IT org. It's that the IT org doesn't get it, right? In a lot of the world, IT is this underfunded, understaffed organization who just has to deal with the change that's coming at them. Part of what the fact that is the cloud does move fast, and that's a good thing. You get all these innovations, you get all these things that are coming to the Teams world that are giving you that capability, right? It's a good thing. And the truth is, your users are more used to this than you think. You as the IT person are used to controlling their entire experience end to end inside of your four walls. But the fact is, they get on their mobile devices on a regular basis service updates, service changes, and service improvements as those apps and services update, right? Think about this as well. For you, if this is more a comfort thing for you from the IT world, going back to basic IT principles, ensure that you've got a dev or a test tenant to deal with this. You can use configuration and policy across the vast majority of things in Teams to prepare yourself and turn off features and capabilities for your end users and give them to your IT folks to learn, understand, and back to the adoption piece, fold into change management, right? Just because Teams is there and offers a smorgasbord of features doesn't mean you have to turn all those features on all at once. You as the IT pro can ensure that you are keeping up with your message center posts and that what's coming on the roadmap. The public roadmap gets updated on a very regular basis. Yeah, it doesn't have exact, it's going to roll this feature to your tenant on this day at this time, but it gives you a pretty darn good idea of, hey, guess what? 7x7 is rolling. If I want to make sure my users understand what that means to them, I should start that comms now. This service is changing in this way. It's bringing these features, and you can do that work, right? You aren't committed. You aren't working on upgrading servers every week now. You're working on understanding the change that's coming for your end users. It's a change of mindset rather than an actual thing you need to worry about. Anything to add, Tom?
Yourself. The only thing there is, I think you're like you said, this is modern IT. Like, what platform are you going to go to that isn't innovating fast? And is that what you're choosing for your org? I want to choose a slower innovating platform because it's easier. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I think that's just the reality of 2020 IT. There's definitely things we can push back on, of like comms and things could be better, but you're sacrificing innovation by going slower, I think.
Agreed.
Awesome. So this comes up less often now, but still comes up from time to time. I've got standards-based room systems. I've got Cisco kit. I've got other vendor kit for my rooms. I can't go to an online meetings platform so. This one's been well serviced for quite a long time. There's obviously Microsoft Teams rooms, and that will be the first conversation you'll hear is like, look at all this flash new kit from Ilya's team around MTRs, collaboration bars. We've got huddle rooms well covered. We've got boardrooms well covered. We can have structured audio. We can have sound tiles in the ceiling. We can have third-party amps, we can have fancy cameras. So that story over the last couple of years has evolved very, very strongly to cover all different room types. But you've also got cloud video interop. So Poly, BlueJeans, and PEXIP all certified for cloud video interop. Poly and BlueJeans as a service. PEXIP you can have in your own environment or as a service or from a third party. And Cisco are in development of their own cloud video interop for Microsoft Teams as well. So you don't need to go and replace all those rooms straight away or potentially at all if you want to keep with the standards based in some cases. But if you want to get new world collaborative meeting room experiences, look at the Microsoft Teams rooms, look at the magic whiteboard features, look at the crazy proximity join, look at all the new stuff coming down there, the interactive whiteboard stuff. There's a lot of value to be had on going down the journey of transforming your rooms from just standards based to Teams. Aaron, anything more on that one? I know you've done some device stuff in your past.
I have, yeah. It is an interesting discussion for sure, right? Again, back to, are you really going to deal with? I know you want to deprecate the cost of that hardware because it was so expensive for you to implement, right? But again, we're talking about deprecating the cost of 20-year-old hardware here in some cases. That yes, it's hard. I don't want to change those out. Okay, right now is the capability you can have in that room dialing into a meeting and getting that CVI, and you've got a plan and a roadmap to be able to replace that with something modern that gives you those additional functions and those additional capabilities. You show your CIO your capability to walk into that room with only a mobile phone, get proximity join and projection into a meeting straight from their mobile or from their iPad, and they don't need to bring a computer in, they don't need to do anything else, and they're going to laugh at what those other devices can provide.
Yeah, it's definitely a new world. You can't stand still. Brilliant. On to the next one. So Aaron, it's you.
Yeah, so this one's a little similar to one we covered before. It's not just that you've got some regulation or something that's keeping me in Skype for Business, but I've got a business process. We hear this heavily around incident management, right? Incident management, people are used to, especially in Skype for Business on premises or in other systems, keeping things like static conference bridges. And I constantly get that question: when are you going to provide static conference bridges in Teams? Well, there's valid reasons I don't want to provide static conference bridges in Teams. And the truth is, if you're still depending on a static conference bridge for the way for people to collaborate to do incident management, I've got some magic over here to show you, right? Look at truly thinking about Don't just try and port the process one-to-one from your Skype for Business into Teams. If you're looking at modernizing your business and modernizing your processes, I bet you can figure out a way using the entire capability of Teams and of the Office 365 and M365 world, from PowerSuite to third-party apps to custom apps you can write, that will knock your users' socks off, right? They will see so many productivity gains if you just stop and think for a second, why am I wanting to keep that process stuck in that Skype for Business, versus really looking at, well, when I'm doing incident management, it might be better to modernize to a chat ops world and bring everybody together in a team to do that chat, because then we've got history around it that's just there. I can modernize my processes and still support dial-in, but it doesn't have to be via a static bridge. Look at, back to this same thing, okay, you got a business process. Does that lack of whatever you believe, lack of support for that business process in Teams, mean that all your users can't move to Teams? Or is it just that you have to move some of your users and keep those other ones on while you're redesigning that business process to take advantage of some of the things that Teams provides? If you've got a dev-heavy world in your IT, consider sponsoring a Teams hackathon, right? You've got a bunch of apps and integrations into Skype for Business. Sponsor a hackathon across your dev org so that those people who are working and those devs who are supporting that learn what APIs and capabilities they have to hack onto Teams, and then give them go to make those things a reality in your Teams world. And the truth is, between PowerSuite, existing third-party, and some custom apps, I've not seen a solution that's integrated in Skype for Business that can't move.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think the tip for consultants would be, I find it's often IT that are saying the business process can't be moved, not the business process owner. So if you can, as a consultant or someone internal IT, you're trying to help the business, try and get some time with the process owner. And as Aaron said, like, show them what's possible with PowerSuite, show them what's possible with channels and Teams. You'll often be surprised. You assumed they were super wed to that process, and they may well like that process, but actually, if you're like, well, here's the upside, look, everybody can be on mobile now, everybody can do this 24/7 around the world. The chat thing is amazing to me, like chat, like how you would not work collaboratively with a chat space for things like incident management just baffles me, because every time someone joins a call, it's like, oh, what's happening, like recap everything again, like just makes sense. So yeah, spend some time with the process owner if you can. Cool. On to the next one. Teams is missing compliance features. So we called this out because this comes up a lot in like healthcare, pharma, financial, anybody with like more hardcore regulatory end of the scale. So I just wanted to call out some of the various compliance features that we have in Microsoft Teams. Compliance is not a thing you turn on. You are compliant against a standard. That might be a regulatory standard, it might be an internal standard, it might be a government standard, GDPR, HIPAA, ISO. They're all standards you can be compliant against. The first thing is understand what compliance standards the organization you're in or are working with is trying to meet, because it's a moving target. If you're working with IT and they say we need compliance, well, compliance with what? That's the first thing. Once you've got what you're trying to be compliant against, then you can look at some of these features, and this conversation spans security and it spans governance, but information barriers are an example. Those block certain groups within your org talking. So financial, buy side, sell side, they're not supposed to communicate because they can't tell each other what they're buying and selling. Big consultancies, big legal firms might be dealing with organizations where there's ethical walls between two groups dealing with, like, Coca-Cola and Pepsi is the classic example. So you can actively block people communicating with Microsoft 365 and within Teams. You've also got communications compliance. So that is more about internal comms. Like we're looking for keywords and key phrases. Like we have a secret project name and we only want that project name talked about in certain spaces. So that can watch out for that type of thing. DLP, this is about information getting outside of your org or outside of your tenant. So if you have guests in Teams or you have external access, like federation scenarios, DLP can watch for key phrases, for regexes, for things like credit card numbers. It is kind of soft DLP. So what happens is it presents the message and then very quickly pulls it back. That's important to understand, but DLP is there in the box as an E5. You've obviously got extensive e-discovery and content search, and that spans the Office 365 workloads. So if you need to do things like information requests, you're going to want to know what's going on in email, what's going on in SharePoint, what's going on in Teams. That can be really powerful. You've got legal hold. You've got the very extensive Office 365 audit log. That is just a beast of information. You can get to it. You can pull out all sorts of things there. And last but not least, in our Teams EUC world, recently the recording API GA'd. So you can record audio, you can record PSTN calls, you can record video, you can record meetings, and that even follows your users across different tenant meetings. So very extensive capabilities to record for session recording, not just audio, but video and sharing as well. So again, back to consulting tips or internal IT tips. What are you compliant against? And then get that written down and then look at the feature stack and see how we can meet the requirements of that regulation. Aaron, anything to add for that one?
No, just adding, well, a little bit, I guess, just adding on the idea of, hey, if you're going to allow guest access into your teams, ensure you really understand what that means, right? It's not that you have to block guests, but you might need to do a guest access review, understand what's behind all of the identity space you've got in Azure AD and what capabilities you have there. Even if you allow guests, you can enforce for those guests that they have to perform MFA against their home tenant, right? Just to be able to be a guest, it doesn't mean there's any addition or any real lessening of security. So.
Perfect. Yeah, guest is a big topic. I'm with you on that. Don't just turn it off to meet a requirement, like control it.
I need physical IP phones. This is one we hear, especially when we're transitioning that voice workload, right? Enterprise voice workload. People come back and IT says, I need physical IP phones for my users. Really? You do? Sorry, but okay, if you do, office.com/Teams devices will show you all the devices. But when you really think about this, what are the scenarios you need to support from a phone device world? Is it the fact that you need to support hot desking, or are those physical IP phones needed for conference room scenarios? Are they executive support scenarios for physical devices? Is it that your CIO, CEO's exec admin needs that physical device because it's what gives them the comfort level to support these scenarios? Is it so really understanding your use case, your scenario, and what those actual users want is the best way for you to go about this, right? Looking at what we've got for support from providers, though, Poly's finally come back into the fold and launched a set of IP phones running on Teams, running Teams code, and they're looking really nice. Yealink's been around for a long time with us. Look at it from Lenovo. Lenovo's got that little, I don't even remember what it's called, the little desk side phone that's sitting there that can support a bunch of features for you, and it isn't your traditional IP phone form factor. But for some scenarios, it just fits and meets that needs. And then audio codes. The traditional stance with users or with IT orgs when they were transitioning from a traditional telephony background with physical handsets to enterprise voice, most organizations planned for 20%. When surveyed, afterwards, those organizations said, yeah, we probably deployed 20% too many phones.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Everybody that has phones thinks they need phones, and I would say there are always going to be use cases for phones. So that definitely is a reality. And quite often what we hear, people misunderstand that a cloud phone system means soft phones. There are absolutely certified phones from multiple vendors, and then you've got that base covered. Yeah, I think the Lenovo Think Smart View is the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
Aaron, there,
smart.
which
That's
is,
the one. Yeah.
yeah, so you've got essentially video phones in a box as well. So plenty of options there, definitely. This one again coming up less, but definitely not gone. The Teams is on the internet. The internet will kill my call quality. Internet has no quals. Life will be over if I put media on the internet. That comes up a lot. First thing to understand is Microsoft peer with all the major ISPs. Like, it's a really crazy list. So when you're on your enterprise network or you're at home, your internet traffic goes from you to your telco or your ISP and then to Microsoft. It doesn't go across the big bad internet very often, if at all. If it's routing correctly and your ISP is set up properly, they will be saving themselves bandwidth and saving you going over the internet by essentially going up the tail to your BT level 3 Tata, whoever it is, and then off to the Microsoft network. And Microsoft have gobs of fiber that's their own, so you're onto their network very, very quickly.
We're only the second largest owner of fiber in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty big network. So like you're not going across the internet, quote unquote, really, in most scenarios. You could go and buy private connectivity to Microsoft, express route type scenarios, but lots of users are working from home as well. So even if you chose to make your enterprise network like perfect and you had SFBS server and everything stayed on the net and MPLS end to end, that's not 2020 IT. Like they're going to the internet for their service now, and they're going to the internet for their Salesforce and everything else. Like, you need to optimize for internet-based services. So this is just one of many, and of course they're likely using Office 365 for other workloads where they're going to Microsoft or a different SaaS provider. So just have your network architected right for internet connectivity. There's obviously lots of great reporting in Microsoft Teams. So should be Call Analytics, typo from me there. Call Analytics was a third-party reporting, but now it's built into the Teams Admin Center. So if you go and look up a user, you can click on that user, click through to their call performance, and you can see all their sessions, their quality, their packet loss, their their latency. That's your kind of first line, second line in supporting an individual user. Then you've got Call Quality Dashboard. Which again, Aaron spent some good time on there. That has evolved immensely from where it started. Like, it's now got PII in it. It's got Power BI reports that are very extensive. It's much bigger. If you haven't looked at that for a couple of years, that is a serious contender now for like proper quality reporting, particularly with Power BI and being able to put your own Power BI reports. Taking to the next level, there's the Call Records API. So you can pull down call quality data, put it in your own database and do your own visualizations, or there are third parties that are building call reporting products based on that. We've obviously got great codecs like Silk and Satin in the product, so we can deal with a bit of bumpiness on the network and still have great quality. And most of all, lots of us in this area have seen this work at scale. Like, it does work. If you get your connectivity right, it's fine. What kills it is proxies, firewalls, centralized internet. Like, you have a gig internet connection in the middle of Europe, but you send everything over 10 meg MPLS from the sites to the Europe internet breakout, and it has a firewall and 8 proxies on it. Like, that will impact your call quality. That's not the internet, that's architecture. So the internet is not a problem as such, but there is work to be done to make sure your network architecture is appropriate for Teams.
Yeah, all I'd share is 2 URLs for the team here. There's aka.ms/PNC. That is our Principles for Network Connectivity that covers a ton of this stuff for people. And if you want to ever see what that means from the that top bullet there, Tom, it's aka.ms/8075. That 8075 is our peering DB's ASN number.
Yeah, we've looked at that a few times, and we haven't found many that aren't, so we've been well covered.
So we're getting up near the end. This is, I'm not ready to move my telephony. This comes back to that very beginning. Okay, you're not ready to move your telephony. Does that mean you're going to hold up moving and deploying the entire team's workload from all of your users? Or is it the fact that you can start with collab or collab and meetings, right? Direct routing is possible. Direct routing is a solution that'll let you keep lots of that quote unquote voice on premises. With support from vendors like Ribbon and Audio Codes, you can get the capabilities to provide for local media optimization. You can get media bypass. If you're really of the point of, I don't trust the cloud to host my voice, and I, even though we're in COVID times, still have lots of my users inside of my walls, and I want to give them an optimized voice path, direct routing with some of these local media optimizations and capabilities can keep that voice on premises, keep that media in your world, and take advantage of those existing carrier contracts. When you look at it and you're looking at moving voice, though, in the end, what's your hesitation? Is your hesitation about the cost or the potential complexity for this, right? So if it's about the cost and existing carrier contracts, again, direct routing lets you keep some of those things on premises and keep those capabilities. When you're looking at it, though, it's also how many users does this impact, right? Is it that you need to really do the work to plan this out over the course of the next 6 to 12 months because you've got the work to do to introduce the changes around having direct routing support? Do you have users in some of your regions that need to do this? We're seeing companies make this move, right? Independent of everybody working from home, we are seeing large corporations make this move in very short period. It is possible to be done. It does require some work. Tom, anything you want to add on this one?
Yeah, no, I think it covers it well. I think that there's two approaches to this depending on the organization. Like you can absolutely make all the cases for it, and there are good potential to win. Like how many users is a great one. If field sales are constantly on the road, and they don't use their traditional telco IP phone on the desk, that they even need it. But also, if you're not going to win that battle day one, there's still tons of value in collab and meetings. Like, cool, keep your whatever PBX, keep your Skype. Like, let's just get collab and meetings out there, and you'll find that the users will pull through. Well, the collab experience is great. I do my meetings. Why do I need this and this? I could do this in one. Or what's the cost saving now of bringing these worlds together? So don't feel like you have to have that battle if you don't need to day one. It's not an all or nothing in Teams. You can absolutely pick your workloads. So that was us for the 10. I hope those were useful. We've seen quite a lot of good questions in the chat. We have a breakout after this, but we've got 5 minutes. I think James, who's joining us as producer, is going to throw out a few questions. But if we want to keep the conversation going, the breakout meeting, feel free to join there after this as well.
Okay, cool. So the first question we've got here is from an anonymous user who would ask, why would my organization use Teams for meetings if they're already happy with Skype for Business on premise? Why switch, other than Microsoft wants to deprecate Skype for B?
Aaron, shall I give a non-Microsoft answer, or do you want to take a Microsoft
Go right
answer?
ahead. No, go right ahead.
I'll save you. I mean, yes, Microsoft want to drive forward to the cloud, obviously. Skype Business is still around for years and years and years, so that is not the primary pressure. But the primary thing for your users is that they're happy with Skype for B, maybe they are, but do they not want 3x3 or 7x7 video layout? Do they not want video background blur and images? Do they not want a great mobile experience on iOS and Android? Like I struggle I struggle to see how they wouldn't want those things, all things being even. So the answer, the brutal answer, you don't have to move, but I suspect a lot of your users would be excited about having a great mobile experience, video backgrounds, lots of video, recording in the cloud, a whole host of advantageous features that are there in Teams.
I will add here, it is likely the case if you as the IT pro believe your users love Skype for Business meetings, they're probably moving their meetings workload to Zoom or WebEx.
Yeah,
if you aren't enabling them to move it to Teams.
Yeah, definitely got to agree on that one. If you block users, they will just grab a corporate credit card and go somewhere else.
Yep.
So Jan Verberhoven, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, asks, what about features? What about contact search? Looking for my contact in my own global address book is still something I hear is a big miss in Teams.
Yeah, so what I will add here is, yep, contact search is a thing we're missing in Teams, but the fact is, having moved to Teams, right? Having moved to Teams as my primary workload, I'll call it 2+ years ago, the number of times I go to my contact list, I can count on my hand. And it's been because it's not the way that you use the tool. This is one of those things. Adoption and change management can work around this. Yes, we get that there are some needs for contact search. There are some enterprise voice features. There's a bunch of changes that are coming to the product. Again, it's a cloud service that sees change on a very regular basis. If we're missing some features today, it doesn't mean we'll be missing those in the future. And I will also, and again, back to it, I don't use my contacts pad ever.
Any more for James?
So Sunil Sharma asks, may we ask what the meeting expiration times are for a recurring meeting, one-time scheduled meeting, and a meet now, please?
Yeah, we can. I've got a reference for that.
Yeah, they're on docs.
To you.
Yep. They are documented. We'll grab the link.
I do remember seeing that. We'll probably answer that one in the breakout. Wayne Threadgill asks, can you give just a certain country the chat calling and features meeting only and not the collab and data features? Now, I did mention, I believe it's doable by PowerShell. You could just use some stuff, but I'll, Tom, Aaron?
Yeah, no, you're right. So you can, there are different modes that enable different features, and they're on a per user basis. So you can select modes. You can hide the Teams bit of Teams, the collab bit, under the kind of 3 ellipses, 3 dots. You can disable team creation. You can't really completely remove the Teams element from the UI from them. But you can make it less obvious. You can definitely light them up for just other workloads as well. The thing to consider is if you're doing that for different countries, how are you going to deal with user comms? Like you need an end goal or an end plan for those users and a clear explanation of why you're taking the steps you're taking. So have a look at the Microsoft Docs for different modes you can put the users in. You can have collab only, you can have collab and meetings, you can have Teams only, and see which one suits. But more than a technical conversation, make sure you have a good comms conversation, because your users will just Google or Bing, the different things they can do in Teams. They'll be like, oh, why haven't I got that ability? Why can't I do meetings? Because I see from YouTube I can do meetings. So if you're going to restrict features, make sure you've got a good comms plan, because all the content your users will gravitate to a Microsoft and third parties will be talking about the abilities of Teams as a stack.
And I would just add that I think you'll see coming here very shortly the ability to do lots of policies via groups. Groups and batch policy processing is coming to the service.
Yeah, I don't know if Jamie Stark's session has been and gone or is on, but he was going to, I think, talk about some of that stuff. So watch that back if you've missed it. But yes, yeah, in terms of how to physically apply those policies, definitely. You can do it today with PowerShell and some looping and stuff, but it will get a lot easier.
Okay, we've got to get through these last few rather quickly, otherwise we'll take the rest of the breakout. Catherine Roscoe asks, what will occur after July 2021 when Skype will be online and therefore hybrid is retired, and when you're using on-prem but a coexistent model. Now, I will say that hybrid in that scenario, hybrid lasts a little bit longer, but I believe, Aaron, that date might get pushed with current circumstances. Can you comment?
No comment that we're actually pushing that 2021 date. No, but we have committed that there will be a path for customers who are in on premises, even after that 2021 date, to be able to establish hybrid from their on premises to enable a migration to Teams.
Yeah, whenever the date comes, disabling Skype for Business Online as a user sign-inable service is not the same as turning off the servers that support stuff. So don't
or
confuse
disabling the ability to establish hybrid, or those two aren't really the same.
Yeah, the deadline is your users can't sign into SFBO. The other things like supporting the traditional 3-pip phones and other things, those will have later and different dates. So make sure you understand your requirements. But yeah, as Aaron says, those things won't disappear on that day if there's business requirement for them.
Right, because the truth is, as of today, you go and get a brand new tenant, it is configured for Teams only.
Yep. Cool. I think.
Yeah, and I totally agree. That 3-pip thing was there. I think it was another 2 years or so from memory. I don't know the specifics, but yeah, there is, the gateway does work in the background even if you shut off Skype. All right, we've still got a few here, and unfortunately we are going over, so we'll take these to the breakout session. I do apologise. Other than that, so I'll publish the link for the breakout session in the channel. But thank you, Tom and Aaron, for your time. It's been fantastic with you guys around.
No, it's been great fun. Thanks for producing. And yeah, breakouts on the screen here. GoTeams.fans BRK207. Aaron and I both have a little bit of time to jump into the breakout and have a chat. We'd love to say hello if nothing else. Hope it's been a useful session. Please fill in your feedback forms. Thanks for coming. Love the sponsors, all that good stuff.
Bye, everybody.
See you on the breakout. Thank you.